You don't fit the aesthetic we're trying to build here, Mom. Surely you understand. A walker in the hallway just. It kills the vibe. My son Jason said these words to me while standing in the doorway of the house I had paid for. It was 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. The moving truck was idling at the curb, the engine humming a low, grumbling note that vibrated in my chest. I was holding a box of my grandmother's china wrapped in newspaper, pressing it against my chest as if it could protect me from the bullet he had just fired into my heart. I didn't drop the box, I didn't scream. I didn't fall to my knees and beg. At 68 years old, you learn that when the world crumbles beneath your feet, you don't flail. You stand still. You assess the damage and then you plan. The aesthetic, I repeated. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. It sounded like the dry rustle of autumn leaves before a storm. Jason looked away. He couldn't meet my eyes. He rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous tic he'd had since he was 6 years old, and broke my favorite vase. Look, Mom, Tiffany and I talked the in-law suite. We need that space. Tiffany's yoga brand is taking off. She needs a studio, a content room, and having you living downstairs. It's just not going to work for the brand image. You understand, right? I understand, I said. You want me to leave? Just for now, he said quickly, finally looking at me with that charming boyish smile that had gotten him out of trouble his whole life. Go to a motel for a few weeks. We'll find you a nice facility. Something with people your own age. We'll help you move. A facility. I tasted the word. It tasted like ash. And the house. The duplex I sold my farm to buy. The deed transfer. Don't worry about the paperwork, Mom. We'll handle everything once we're settled. Just give us the keys to the suite. Tiffany needs to start painting the walls white today. The lighting is better in the morning. He held out his hand, palm open, expectant, as if he were asking for allowance money. I looked at his hand. Then I looked at the house. It was a beautiful Victorian duplex in the historic district. I had spent the last of my savings, the money from selling the farm where I raised him, to buy it. $650,000 cash. Another $150,000 in renovations to make the ground floor perfect for my old age. Wider doorways, a walk-in tub, a garden view. It was supposed to be our multi-generational dream. I would age in place. He would have the massive upstairs unit for his family. I had given him everything. And now, standing on the porch with the wind biting at my face, I realized I had raised a stranger. Okay, I said. I reached into my purse. I pulled out the heavy brass key ring. I placed it in his hand. You're a good sport, Mom, he said, relief washing over his face. He actually looked proud of himself, as if he had successfully negotiated a business deal. I knew you'd get it. Family supports family, right? Right, I whispered. Family supports family. I turned around. I walked down the porch steps past the moving truck, where the men were waiting for instructions. Ma'am, one of the movers asked, leaning out the window. Where do we put the furniture? I stopped. I looked at Jason, who was already closing the front door, shutting me out of my own life. Take it to storage, I told the driver. I'll text you the address. I got into my sedan, my 2015 Toyota that had seen better days. I sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, until my knuckles turned white. I watched Tiffany appear in the window of my suite. The suite designed for my arthritis, for my comfort. She was holding a phone, recording herself. She was probably telling her followers about her new studio. They thought I was a confused old woman. They thought I would go to a motel, cry into a pillow, and wait for them to decide my fate. They thought that because I was a mother, my love was a bottomless well they could poison and still drink from. But they forgot one thing. I wasn't just a mother. I was a farmer's wife. I had weathered droughts, floods, and freezes. I knew how to cull the herd when the sickness set in. And as I put the car in drive, dry-eyed and cold, I knew exactly what I had to do. Because Jason had made a fatal error. A mistake born of arrogance and greed. He thought the house was his. But the deed transfer. That appointment was scheduled for Thursday. Today was Tuesday. Technically, legally, and undeniably, I was still the sole owner of 420 Oak Street. And my son had just evicted his landlord. I drove straight to Harriet's house. Harriet has been my best friend since high school. She's a retired paralegal with a sharp tongue and a cellar full of homemade wine. When I knocked on her door, clutching my purse and looking like I had just seen a ghost, she didn't ask questions. She pulled me inside and poured me a glass of Pinot Noir. "Tell me," she said. I told her everything, the aesthetic, the yoga studio, the motel. Harriet sat in silence for a long moment, tapping her fingernails on the granite countertop. "So," she said finally, "he kicked you out of a house you paid for?" "Yes, and the paperwork, the transfer of ownership you were going to do as a gift. It's sitting in a folder in my briefcase," I said. "We were supposed to go to the county clerk on Thursday." Harriet smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a shark sensing blood in the water. "Aurora," she said, using my full name. "Do you know what this means?" "It means I'm homeless," I said, my voice finally cracking. "No," she corrected me. "It means you are the owner of a luxury duplex occupied by squatters. And it means you have about 48 hours to make a move before they realize the paperwork isn't filed and try to forge something or claim a verbal contract." I took a sip of the wine. The shock was wearing off, replaced by a cold, hard rage. It started in my stomach and spread to my fingertips. I thought about the check I wrote for that house, the sweat equity I put into the farm to earn that money. I thought about Jason's college tuition, his first car, his wedding. All paid for by me. "I don't want to evict them," I said softly. Harriet looked disappointed. "You're going to let them stay?" "No," I said. I looked up at her, and I think she saw the change in my eyes. "Eviction takes months. They have rights. They can drag it out. I don't want a legal battle, Harriet. I want a nuclear option." "What do you have in mind?" "I want to sell it," I said. "I want to sell it out from under them while they sleep. I want to sell it so fast their heads spin." Harriet's grin widened. "I know a realtor. He specializes in cash offers, investors who buy as is and want immediate possession. Call him," I said. "Tell him I want to sell 420 Oak Street. Cash only. 30-day closing. And tell him the tenants are temporary." That night I didn't sleep. I sat in Harriet's guest room, organizing my files. I pulled out every receipt, the check for the purchase, the invoices from the contractor, Mike. Mike was a good man. He had built the custom cabinets in the kitchenette specifically for my height. I called Mike at 7 a.m. the next morning. "Mrs. Miller," he answered, sounding groggy. "Everything okay with the heater?" "Mike," I said, "I need you to send me copies of every text message Jason or Tiffany sent you during the renovation, especially the ones where they tried to change the design without asking me." Sure. "Did something happen? They decided the in-law suite is a yoga studio, Mike? And that I belong in a motel." There was a silence on the line. Mike had buried his own mother last year. I knew how he felt about family. "I'm sending the screenshots now," Mike said, his voice dropping an octave. "And Mrs. Miller, if you need a witness, I'm there. I heard Tiffany say she couldn't wait until the old bag kicked the bucket so she could have the whole house." I thought she was joking. "I'm sorry." My hand tightened on the phone. "Thank you, Mike. Send it all." By Wednesday afternoon, I had ammunition. I had the deed. I had the receipts. I had text messages proving their intent to defraud me. Messages where Tiffany discussed managing the transition of getting me out of the house once the papers were signed. But I needed the final blow. I needed a stage. And as if fate were writing the script, my phone buzzed with a text from Jason. "Hey, Mom. Hope the motel is okay. Listen, we're having a huge housewarming party on Friday night. A lot of Tiffany's investors and potential sponsors are coming. We really need you to be there. It looks good for the family values image if you make an appearance. Just wear something modern, Okay. And maybe don't mention the living arrangements. We want everyone to think this is a joint success. Love you. I stared at the screen. The audacity was breathtaking. He wanted me to be a prop, a silent, smiling grandmother to validate his success, to make him look like a good son, in front of the people he wanted to impress. Love you. Those 2 words felt like a slap. I showed the text to Harriet. Are you going? She asked. Oh, I'm going, I said. I stood up and smoothed down my skirt. And I'm going to give a speech. It would be rude not to toast the new homeowners, wouldn't it? Wednesday and Thursday were a blur of activity. I met with Mr. Henderson, the realtor Harriet knew. He was a sharp-dressed man who smelled of expensive cologne and ruthlessness. When I explained the situation, that I owned the house free and clear, that the occupants had no lease, and that I wanted to sell immediately, he made 2 phone calls. I have a buyer, he said, hanging up. A developer. He's been trying to get into that neighborhood for years. He'll pay cash. $800,000. That's $150,000 over what you paid, given the renovations. When can we close? He can wire the earnest money today. We can sign the preliminary contract tomorrow morning. But the occupants, the contract will state that the property is sold, occupied with unauthorized tenants, on a month-to-month basis, I said, citing the legal jargon I had learned. The new owner will have to handle the eviction. Can he do that? For this price and for this location? Henderson smiled. He has a legal team that eats evictions for breakfast. He'll serve them notice the day he takes title. Good, I said. Draw it up. I want the sold sign in the trunk of my car by Friday night. Friday arrived with a heavy gray sky. I spent the afternoon at the beauty salon. Not the cheap one in the strip mall, but the high-end salon downtown. I had my hair done. A silver bob, sharp and elegant. I had my nails painted a deep blood red. I bought a new dress, navy blue silk. It cost $400. Jason hated when I spent money on myself. He said it was wasteful, when there was an inheritance to protect. Well, the inheritance was being spent today. I arrived at the house at 7 p.m. The street was lined with luxury cars. Music was thumping from inside. Something electronic and repetitive. The house was lit up like a Christmas tree. Through the big bay window, the window I had imagined reading my books in front of, I could see Tiffany holding a glass of champagne, laughing with a group of women, who all looked exactly like her. I walked up the path. The same path I was walked down 3 days ago, like a discarded piece of furniture. The front door was open. I walked in. Jason saw me first. He was near the stairs, holding court with a group of men in suits. He looked handsome, successful. A lie wrapped in a Ralph Lauren blazer. Mom, he called out, his smile tight. He rushed over, grabbing my arm a little too hard. You made it, and you look great. Really appropriate. Hello, Jason, I said. I pulled my arm away gently but firmly. Listen, he lowered his voice. The guy over there in the gray suit, that's Marcus. He's an angel investor. He's thinking of funding Tiffany's studio expansion. Just nod and smile if he asks about the house, okay? Let me handle the talking. Of course, I said. I wouldn't want to ruin the aesthetic. He didn't catch the sarcasm. He patted my shoulder and steered me toward the kitchen. Grab a drink. Stay out of the way of the caterers. I stood in the corner of the kitchen. My kitchen with the custom cabinets Mike had installed. And watched. I watched them eat the food I had paid for indirectly. I watched them toast to their success. I watched Tiffany give a tour of the studio, opening the door to my suite, and showing off the white walls and the ring lights. We worked so hard for this, I heard her say. It's been a dream of ours to own a historic home. My blood didn't run cold. It boiled. It turned into steam that powered the engine of my resolve. At 8:30 p.m., Jason clinked a spoon against his champagne glass. The music lowered. The room hushed. Everyone, Jason said, standing on the landing of the stairs. Tiffany stood next to him, beaming. Thank you all for coming. This house It represents a new chapter for us. A chapter of growth, of success, and of building a legacy. We poured our hearts and souls into this place. There was a round of applause. Tiffany wiped a fake tear from her eye. And Jason continued, I want to thank my mother, Aurora, for always believing in us. Mom, where are you? He spotted me in the back. The spotlight was on me. He expected me to wave, to look grateful to be included. I stepped forward. Actually, Jason, I said. My voice projected clearly across the room. I didn't need a microphone. I had 40 years of calling cows in from the pasture. I'd like to say a few words. Jason froze, his smile faltered. Mom, we're kind of on a schedule. It will only take a minute, I said, walking toward the center of the room. The crowd parted for me. The navy blue silk rustled. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at them. My son talks about legacy. I began looking around at the investors and influencers. He talks about hard work. And it is true, this house is a masterpiece. The renovations cost $150,000. A murmur went through the crowd. Impressed whistles. But, I continued, there seems to be a slight misunderstanding about the nature of ownership. Jason's eyes widened. Mom, don't do this, not now. You see, I said, turning to Marcus, the investor. Jason and Tiffany told you they bought this house. They told you it was their asset. But the truth is, 3 days ago on moving day, my son took the keys from my hand and told me I didn't fit the aesthetic of this home. He told me to go to a motel. He kicked his own mother out of the suite she paid for. The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Tiffany's smile had vanished, replaced by a look of sheer terror. That's not true, Tiffany shrieked. She's senile. She's confused. I am many things, Tiffany, I said calmly, pulling a folded document from my purse. But confused isn't one of them. This is the deed to the property. As you can see, it is in my name, Aurora Miller, sole owner. I held it up. The stamp of the county clerk was visible. And this, I pulled out a second document, is the sale agreement I signed this morning. Jason turned pale. He gripped the banister. What? I sold the house, Jason, I said, this morning to a private development firm. It was a cash offer. Very generous. You can't do that, Jason stammered. We live here. All our stuff is here. Actually, I said, checking my watch. You are guests. And the new owners, they are very strict about squatters. I believe the notice to vacate is being taped to the front door. Right about now. As if on cue, the heavy brass knocker on the front door slammed 3 times. Bang, bang, bang. That will be the courier, I said. I looked at Jason. He looked like a child who had lost his mother in a supermarket. Scared, small. You said I didn't fit the image, Jason, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that echoed in the silence. So I removed myself from the picture. And I took the frame with me. I turned to the guests. Please enjoy the champagne. I believe Jason has put it on his credit card. I'd drink it quickly if I were you. I hear he's about to have some cash flow problems. I walked toward the door. I didn't look back. I heard Tiffany screaming. I heard Jason shouting for everyone to calm down. I heard the crash of a glass breaking. I opened the door. On the porch stood a process server, holding a thick envelope taped to the wood. He looked at me, surprised. Mrs. Miller. That's me, I said. They're inside. Make sure you hand it directly to the man in the blazer. He likes to feel important. I walked down the steps, past the luxury cars to my Toyota. The rain had stopped. The air was crisp and clean. I got in my car and started the engine. I looked at the house one last time. It was beautiful, it was perfect. And it was no longer my problem. The silence in the car was beautiful. It wasn't empty. It was full of possibility. I drove away from the party, leaving the chaos in my rearview mirror. I didn't go back to Harriet's. I drove to the hotel I had booked for myself. Not the cheap motel Jason had suggested, but the Ritz-Carlton downtown. I ordered room service, a steak medium rare, and a bottle of red wine. I ate alone, watching the city lights. My phone was vibrating on the table. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Jason. Tiffany. Jason again. Jason again. I didn't answer. I didn't block them either. I wanted a record of their panic. At 11:30 p.m., a voicemail came through. I put it on speaker while I finished my wine. Mom, what the hell did you do? Marcus left. Everyone left. The process server. He gave us a 30-day notice. 30 days, where are we supposed to go? We spent all our savings on the furniture and the launch party. You have to fix this. Call the buyers. Cancel the sale. Mom, pick up. I took a sip of wine. No, I whispered to the empty room. I don't think I will. The next morning, the war began. I was in the hotel lobby having coffee when 2 police officers walked in. They scanned the room, spotted me, and approached. My heart gave a little flutter, an old instinct of fear. But I tamped it down. I had done nothing illegal. Mrs. Aurora Miller, the older officer, asked, Yes, officer. We received a request for a welfare check. Your son, Jason Miller, claims you are having a mental health crisis. He says you are acting erratically and making dangerous financial decisions due to dementia. I set my coffee cup down. So that was their play, the incompetence card. If they could prove I was mentally unfit, they could invalidate the sale and get power of attorney over me. It was predictable. It was desperate. Officer, I said, reaching into my tote bag. I expected this. I pulled out a manila envelope. Inside was a letter from Dr. Aris, my neurologist. I had visited him on Thursday morning, right after leaving the realtor's office. I had asked for a full cognitive evaluation. This is a certificate of mental competency, I said, handing it to the officer. Dated 2 days ago. It confirms I am fully lucid, oriented, and capable of managing my own affairs. And this, I handed him the deed and the sale contract, is proof that I sold my own property, which I have every legal right to do. The officer read the doctor's note. He looked at the legal documents. He looked at me, calm, well-dressed, sipping a cappuccino. He said, You disappeared, the officer said. I didn't disappear, I said. I checked into a hotel because my son evicted me from my home. I believe that is called elder abuse, isn't it? The officer's face hardened. He handed the papers back to me. I see. We'll let Mr. Miller know that you are safe and sound, ma'am. I apologize for the disturbance. No apology necessary, I said. You're just doing your job. But officer, if he calls again, please remind him that filing a false police report is a crime. I will do that, ma'am. They left. I watched them go, feeling a swell of pride. I had outmaneuvered them again. But I knew Jason wouldn't stop there. 3 days later, I was at Harriet's house, helping her prune her roses, when a courier arrived. A lawsuit. Jason Miller versus Aurora Miller. He was suing me for breach of verbal contract and promissory estoppel. He claimed I had verbally promised him the house and that he had made financial decisions based on that promise. He wanted an emergency injunction to stop the sale. He's grasping at straws, Harriet said, reading the document over her reading glasses. Verbal contracts for real estate are unenforceable in this state. The statute of frauds requires it to be in writing. Any first-year law student knows that. He doesn't have a first-year law student, I said. He has Tiffany's cousin who failed the bar exam twice. Still, Harriet said, looking concerned, it puts a hold on the money. The title company won't release the funds until the litigation is cleared. He's trying to bleed you out. He knows you spent your cash on the house. He thinks if he freezes the sale proceeds, you'll run out of money and crawl back. It was a smart move. Evil but smart. I had $800,000 waiting in escrow, but I couldn't touch it. My checking account was running low. I'm not crawling back, I said. I have a pension. I have credit cards. I can wait. You need a lawyer, Harriet said. A real shark. I have you, I smiled. Honey, I'm a retired paralegal. You need a litigator. You need Simon. Simon was Harriet's nephew. He was expensive, aggressive, and hated bullies. We went to see him that afternoon. Simon listened to the story, looked at the texts Mike had sent me, and laughed. It was a cold, dry laugh. This isn't a lawsuit, Simon said. This is a tantrum filed on legal paper. I can get this dismissed in a summary judgment hearing. But, do you want to play defense or do you want to play offense? Offense, I said immediately. Good, because while he's suing you for a house you own, he seems to have forgotten about the money he owes you. He doesn't owe me money, I said. I paid for everything. Exactly. Simon pulled out a notepad, the wedding, the car, the down payment on his previous condo that he sold to fund his lifestyle. Did you sign gift letters for those? I thought back. For the condo, yes. For the wedding, no, I just paid the vendors directly. And the renovations on this house, Simon said. Did you have a contract with him? No, I paid the contractor. Okay, here is what we do. We countersue. Not for the house. The house is yours. We countersue for unjust enrichment. We tally up every dime he extracted from you, under the pretense of caring for his aging mother. And we file for an immediate eviction order, on the grounds of waste. Claiming his unauthorized use of the property, as a commercial yoga studio, violates residential zoning laws, and damages the asset. Can we do that? Aurora, Simon smiled. We can do whatever we want. We have the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. And right now you hold the deed. The court date was set for 2 weeks later. In that time I stayed busy. I didn't hide. I went to the grocery store. I went to church. I held my head high. People whispered. In a small town, everyone knows everything. But the whispers weren't what I expected. Good for her, I heard a woman say in the produce aisle. I wish I had the guts to do that to my ungrateful kids. She stood up for herself, the baker told his assistant, when I bought my morning bagel. I wasn't the villain. I was the folk hero. Jason, on the other hand, was unraveling. I heard from Mike that Tiffany had moved out. Apparently, without the in-law studio and the free house, the stress of the impending eviction was too much for their perfect marriage. Jason was sleeping on a mattress in the living room because he had sold the bedroom set to pay his lawyer. The day of the hearing arrived. I wore the same navy blue dress I wore to the party. It was my battle armor. We sat in the courtroom. Jason looked terrible. He hadn't shaved. His suit was wrinkled. He wouldn't look at me. His lawyer, the cousin, looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. The judge was a stern woman with glasses on a chain. She read the files in silence for 10 minutes. Then she looked over her glasses at Jason. Mr. Miller, she said. Let me understand this. You are suing your mother because she sold a house that is titled in her name, paid for with her money, and for which you have contributed $0. We had an agreement, Your Honor, Jason said, his voice shaking. She said it was our house. And yet, the judge flipped a page. According to these sworn affidavits from the contractor, you referred to the homeowner's suite as storage, and told your mother to go to a motel. Is that correct? That was taken out of context. And the text messages, the judge held up the printouts Mike had sent me, where you tell your wife, don't worry, the old bat won't be around forever. I hadn't seen that one. Mike must have saved it for the lawyers. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, but I kept my face stone still. Jason turned beet red. I was venting. You are venting in my courtroom, Mr. Miller, the judge said. This lawsuit is frivolous. It is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I am granting the countersuit for immediate eviction. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises. If you are not out, the sheriff will remove you. She slammed the gavel. It sounded like a gunshot ending a war. Jason stood there, stunned. He looked at me then, really looked at me. I saw tears in his eyes. Mom, he mouthed. I stood up. I gathered my purse. I looked at him and I felt nothing. No anger. No hate. Just a profound sense of closure. Goodbye, Jason, I said. I walked out of the courtroom. Harriet and Simon were waiting for me. We went to lunch, we ordered champagne. 2 days later, the eviction was carried out. I didn't go to watch. I didn't need to see it. Mike went for me, he sent me a text. Key is under the mat. Place is empty. They took the light bulbs, but the walls are still standing. The sale closed the following week. The wire transfer hit my account. $800,000. Plus the refund of the unused renovation funds. I was nearly a millionaire. But I was homeless, so Harriet said, sitting on her porch swing with me. What now? You can stay here as long as you want, but I know you. I don't want to stay here, I said. I pulled a brochure out of my bag. I found a place. A nursing home, Harriet asked, horrified. No, I laughed. A condo in Florida, on the beach. It's in a community for active seniors. They have a garden club, a library, and strict rules against long-term guests. Under the age of 55. No kids allowed, Harriet grinned. No kids allowed, I confirmed. I bought it yesterday, cash. When do you leave? Monday. The weekend before I left, my phone rang. It was Jason. I hesitated, then answered. Hello, Mom. His voice was broken. He sounded drunk. I'm staying at a buddy's place. Tiffany filed for divorce. She wants half of nothing. I have nothing. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I meant it. It is a tragedy to see your child fail, even if they brought it on themselves. Can I borrow some money? Just to get an apartment? I promise I'll pay you back. I sat in Harriet's kitchen, looking at the sunlight, streaming through the window. I thought about the motel he tried to send me to. I thought about the aesthetic. No, Jason, I said gently. You don't fit the budget I'm trying to build here. Mom, please, I'm your son. You are, I said. And because I love you, I'm going to let you learn how to stand on your own 2 feet. You're young, you're healthy. You have a job. You'll figure it out. You're cruel, he spat. I'm a mother, I said. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let your children grow up. I hung up. I blocked the number. I moved to Florida 3 days later. My condo is beautiful. It has a balcony overlooking the ocean. I drink my coffee there every morning. I joined the book club. I met a man named Robert who likes to play chess and doesn't ask me for money. Sometimes I think about the duplex on Oak Street. I wonder if the new owners like the kitchen cabinets. I wonder if they kept the sage green walls. But mostly I think about that moment on the porch. The moment I chose dignity over duty. The moment I realized that family isn't a free pass for abuse. I kept the brass key from the duplex. It hangs on a hook by my door. A reminder that I hold the keys to my own life. And no one, not even my own son, will ever take them from me again. If this story made you cheer for Aurora, if it made you want to stand up and clap when she revealed that deed, please leave me a comment below. I want to know. Have you ever had to choose between your family and your self-respect? Tell me your story. I read every single one, and you have no idea how much strength they give me. And if you believe that it's never too late to take control of your life, please hit that like button. It helps us share this message with other grandmothers, mothers, and survivors out there. Don't forget to subscribe to Family Shock so you don't miss the next truth we uncover. And to you, Jason, if you're watching this from your friend's couch, I hope you finally learned that a house is made of bricks, but a home is made of respect. You broke the foundation, son, and you have no one to blame but yourself when the roof caved in.